you have to realize, like, just listen to thunder, just how much power.
Yeah.
Like, it just literally natural power.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's just a trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to talk to you about that.
Yeah.
But anyways, let's check in. Let's get this thing going, and let's start things off today with a little meditation.
Okay, cool. So welcome everybody. Just like we will, every time we'll do a little, just like a short breathing meditation, really just to check in with your body and into the present moment. So we'll just take maybe like 5 to 10 breaths. So you can take, if you want to, you can take deep breaths. You can just take easy breaths, or just simply notice your breath. The breath is, always in the present moment. The body's always in the present moment. It's only our mind that can escape it. So just simply by breathing on purpose, or by placing your attention on your breath, you're here. You're here right now. So just a couple more breaths, possibly relaxing into your body a little bit more. Alright, cool. And then go ahead and take a nice deep breath in. A full breath in through the nose, and then hold the breath in for a moment, and then relax your shoulders, relax your neck, relax your arms, and then open your mouth and just sigh the breath out. Okay. Thank you for joining. And I forgot to mention it this time, but that little check-in, especially at the beginning, that you can always do it no matter what you're doing, because you're always breathing. So you can always just focus on your breath no matter what you're doing, and you're just gonna bring a little bit more presence into that. And then also, that you're welcome to focus on your breath throughout the whole podcast here. Okay, cool. So the topic we have today is really, really awesome. But like when I first mention it, it probably won't seem that awesome because like that you could say it's like one of the darkest parts of our lives, or the darkest parts of ourselves. So like, as we bring this subject up, that you might kind of like feel some reaction in your body. You might feel like, there's some tension or gripping, or like some kind of resistance. So just notice just notice those things, right? That we have to notice something and be aware of it before we can do anything about it. So we really have to be aware of it and know it's there. But then as we talk about the subject throughout the episode, also notice if your body is like relaxing a little bit and opening up, because we're going to talk about this subject in a way that is really helpful. It's been really helpful for Ben and I, and hopefully for you also. So what we're going to talk about is that one thing in your life, maybe it's about you, or it's like about some way that you were raised, or maybe your family, something about you in your life that is the number one reason why you can't do this, you couldn't do that. Like, what has been holding you back the very most in your life, where it's like this attitude where if only this wasn't like this, then I would be totally successful, I'd be totally popular, I'd be so happy if only this wasn't so about me or my life. So as I say that, I'm sure that all of you went right to that place. And it's probably the first place you went to. Maybe there are like a couple of them, but usually there's like one thing that's really obvious, where it's like, damn it, this thing. So kind of jumping into it right away, for me, it's my speech. So when I was about 6 years old, I guess I developed a stutter, and I don't remember speaking that prior to being 6 years old. So I've really only known what it is like to speak with a stutter. Um, and you can imagine like how much that holds somebody back if they can't even speak fluently. If so I would get like stuck a lot. I'd like want to say something and I wouldn't be able to say it. I would like want to read in class, but then it was actually like my worst nightmare because the last thing I ever wanted to do was to like stop on a word, like for example the word the or and then people will think that I can't pronounce the word. They'll think I'm stupid, which was definitely going through my head a lot, or they'll just straight up make fun of me for not being able to speak. um and like I blamed a lot of things in my life, and also a lot of things that I wasn't doing in my life, on my stutter. For example, like I didn't date very much. I've never dated very much at all, and I would blame it on my stutter. Be like, man, I can't meet new people. I didn't really make new friends. After high school, like mostly all my friends in college were made for me because my roommate was like really really social, and I really didn't make any friends on my own for years, and I blamed it on my stutter. It's like I can't go up and meet new people because they'll think I'm weird if I like stop and get stuck, and I was so hard on myself. And yeah, it just held me back from doing a lot in my life, and it definitely held me back from me like loving and appreciating myself. And now I think that what really made this whole stutter thing come up was like some kind of deep insecurity, but I saw it as the stutter was causing insecurity to happen inside of me. So like I had it backwards, and I was like keep on like fighting and hating the stutter, when really it was just an outward manifestation of something that was happening internally inside of me that I really haven't started to kind of touch until honestly within this past year. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's my thing.
That's amazing, man. Dude, you're gonna trip out too, because I was looking back. Because I'll jump in and just say that. So for me, and I think this is a cool connection for both of us, is I grew up and still am very dyslexic, and I'll get into that a little bit more. But you'll love, when I was diagnosed with being dyslexia, I was 6 years old.
Whoa.
Is that a trip? That's just a trip. Like
Yeah.
that's some trippy shit. Yeah. So for me, I could have conversations. So it's actually cool because it's just different perspective on everything. So I used to have conversations with people when I was like 5, like I was an adult.
Dude, me
Like
too. I was like super social.
Yeah, I was like, hey, how's your day? What's going on? Like, I would be the most social little kid ever.
Talk to me. What's going on?
Yeah. But then people started putting books in front of me, and I was like, what is this? Like, what is this thing you're trying to teach me in a different language? Like, can't we just have a conversation, right? And so luckily I'm very blessed that I had two really good parents that like recognized right away. They're like, hey, like this kid, he's smart, but like something's going on, like that he's not putting 2 and 2 together, because he can have conversations with us about stuff that he shouldn't even be talking about. But when you put a book in front of him, he clams up and he has no idea what he's doing. Wow. And so I got diagnosed really young because they kind of push things through more, knowing that. So I'm, once again, I'm really blessed that they did that, and I was able to kind of figure everything out. But it put these like restrictions on me that when I did get into school, being called on to read and not knowing how to pronounce a word is like the worst feeling you're ever going to have. And it really did hold me back all of my education. Looking back at, I scraped through all the way through elementary school, I got by, you know, and that's the thing. Elementary school, you really think about it, just a matter of like doing the work, right? And so with help from others, I got by elementary school. You get into junior high, and that's when you really start figuring everything out. You have to actually start putting in the work, getting ready for high school. And luckily by then in junior high, I got a good tutor, and like I was connecting with the person, and like they were the first person that actually helped me figure out how to process things in a dyslexic way. So that was cool. But then once high school came around, that's when things just got tougher, and I found more relief in like sports and, you know, different different avenues to look. And what I realized, and this is what the difference is between you and me, what I realized, it actually made me more social in other situations normally kids wouldn't be social in, because I would network to get answers, to get homework done, to talk to a teacher and be like, hey, how do I get, you know, a better grade? Like, you're not going to give me extra credit. Like, you love me, right? Like, so I got I literally bullshitted my way through high school, you know, the whole way through. And, you know, looking back at that now, I'm actually really blessed because I naturally have that talent that I could start a conversation with just about anybody, if I have something to talk about at the end of the day. So, you know, those are the little things I realize now that are really, you know, amazing at the end of the day. But it really, you know, to get back on topic of why it held me back is I would always look for other ways to do everything, and I would always get stuck, and it would hold me back because it would be embarrassing. And I would go into that in that way that it ends up being like, it would end up being trauma. Like, I can visually go back in elementary school when, you know, you're reading something out loud with people, and, you know, you'd be in class and everyone reads a paragraph and goes down the line, right? I used to sit back. I used to count how many people were ahead of me and which paragraph I would be on next. And I'd be like sweating and freaking out, like if I'm counting it the right way.
The only time I sweat was when I was either like exercising or when I was waiting to read in class.
Right, exactly. And then like, so I would like kind of figure out which paragraph it was. So I would reread that through like a million times and not pick up what you're actually supposed to be learning in the classroom at all, you know? And those are like, you know, we think those aren't big things. Like, we think that's just normal, but it does like damage on us, you know, later on. And talking again about education, for me, it was funny. I actually did pretty decent in college when I did do the little bit of college I did. I only dropped out just because I was sick of education systems, and that's another topic for another day. But I realized the reason why I did decent in college, because when you get into college, it's about, you know, finding ways to get it done on your own. Whereas in like high school and below that, you have to do X to get Y, and that's the only way to do it. Yeah. You know, college, they give you a little bit more room to like do whatever you're going to do. And if you just don't, and no matter what, just get it done. Because that's how it is, you know, in the workforce. You know, if you're an employee, at the end of the day, get it done. Right. You know, that's like college atmosphere. So I actually was pretty good at that. I just hated school and hated everything about it because of all the trauma that I had before with it. And it took me a long time to realize how much damage that really did on me, and how it made me, you know, not read as much as I should be, and how much I, you know, just kind of set things aside because I didn't want to deal with, you know, not understanding it, right? Where now more I just kind of ground myself and push through a situation, and use the skills that I picked up just to ask questions if I don't understand something. But those are things that they held me, what I think really held me back actually just made me the person that I am. And I think that's the same reason or the same thing that you've come to the conclusion to at the end of the day as well, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, like, you know, so no, the practice of forgiveness is like huge. Um, and that's with other people, but also yourself. And like, if you don't know, the forgiveness is simply just letting go of some kind of like resentment or judgment or like anger inside of yourself. It doesn't have anything to do with the other person at all. It's just you are letting go of something toxic that you're holding on inside of yourself. And self forgiveness is huge too. And we really to probably look to that at the very, very last, part, if we even do ever get to that point. But like, trying to, it's like not make anything that you're doing wrong. And we do that
Yeah.
all the time. We make things that we did wrong. Um, and this is like, also kind of a way that time is created. So that we look to the past and we say, I did that wrong. That was bad. Crap. In the present moment, I feel really guilty about it. And then in the future, I'm going to be punished. So that's like one way that time is actually created. But anyway, that's like a whole other subject in and of itself. But, just being able to like allow yourself to make mistakes and to not see it as something that's this like, irrevocable sin, which a lot of us, in this country were raised with the idea of sin and hell, which is just so messed up on so many levels. I'm sure we'll get into that, in a whole other thing too. But one thing that made it so hard for me to like, to forgive myself for stuttering or whatever, is because it was always seen as a bad thing. It was never looked at as something that was like, okay. And I'm not saying okay in the sense that like, oh, whatever, so let's just, let the kid stutter all his life. Not like that. But just it not being bad is what I mean by okay. But like, it was always something that like shouldn't be there. Then like, I went to therapy for it, and it was like always to like, let's try and get rid of this thing, because it's not good and it's holding you back. So that was a big thing, is like, it's not actually bad. It's just what's happening inside of me right now. So instead of trying to get rid of it and trying to kill it, like an enemy, how about we like actually tap into it and see how we can work with it? And Ben, I know you know this, instead of pushing against the river, try and go with the flow. Yeah. And we can do so much better if we go with things, if we use what we're given, use what we have, and then we work with that. And for me, that this one analogy that I really love is like, so I think I've seen a cooking show like this before, but it's like, okay, so imagine this cooking show, and they're like our different contestants, and they each get like, let's say 1 hour and these ingredients and these utensils and kitchenware. Okay, they don't get to choose any of that stuff. It's like, this is what you got, and the contest is make the best thing you could possibly make with this stuff in this amount of time. Go. So the person who wins is going to totally accept what they have to work with in the amount of time they have to work with it, and they're going to just like, be there and be creative, and they're going to make something awesome. The person who loses is probably the person who's thinking, God, they have something better than me. Why didn't I get that? This is bullshit. I shouldn't have this. This is so unfair. All that kind of stuff. And we do that with ourselves, and with this thing we're talking about, we do that all the time. And we're just holding ourselves back. It's not the actual thing that's holding us back, but it's our relationship to that thing, and then how that influences our relationship with ourselves.
So many good things right there. So I want to touch on too, because forgiveness is acceptance, right? And it wasn't until I accepted that I actually do have, this learning disability that is a part of me. It wasn't until that I really started truly thriving. And before, I would never even really talk about it. Like, I have friends that this is stuff that's kind of new to them, that it really bothered me that much, right? Because it was something I just buried down deep inside of me. I would just brush it off, and I wanted to always be normal. It's what it was. I wanted to be normal. I wanted to be with the crowd. And we've talked about it before too, is that's the worst thing we could do. We should be weird and unique and go against the crowd, right? And I love the perspective too of what you're saying, is that I think that was my way of trying to fix it, was to blend in. And that isn't going to fix anything. Instead, I should be embracing, which is what I've done now. And so I'll warn everyone on the show, you're going to hear me mess up words. There's going to be things that don't make sense. I'm going to have to ask Nate, wait, what does that mean? Because that's just how I operate. That's just how I am. And I really love it at the end of the day. There's my wife cracks up at me all the time with just little things that I do that are just off the wall. And a perfect example is like, so if there's 4 drawers, 1, 2, 3, 4, and she says, grab something from the second drawer, I'm going to look from the bottom up instead of the top down, right? Which the average person is going to grab that, 1, 2, second drawer, right? I'm going to go to 3, baby. That's just who I am. It's just who I am. It's all open the drawer, be like, wait, where is it? It's not in here. And she'll just start cracking up, So that's just who I am. And it's the acceptance of like, it's going to take me longer than the average person to do something. I'm probably going to mess it up a good 3 times before I figure it out, And I even tell people now, like, if they're really showing me something, I'm going to say like, you're gonna have to show this to me multiple times. Like, it's just who I am. But once I get something, I get it, like, and it's done,
Yeah.
So yeah, those are the 2 things that just jumped out to me when you're talking about fixing things and forgiveness. Oh, and the whole attitude of fixing everything is just how we need to understand, how we live in this fix-it mentality is living in the box. We all live in this box, and that's how the box is supposed to be. But what if I don't want to live in the box? What if I want to make a box? What if I want to wrap the box? What if I want to live outside of the box? I don't want to live in the box.
What if you don't want it to be a box? You want it to be like a circle?
Yeah. What if I want it to be a cool triangle or circle or something that? I'm not going to live in a box, Yeah,
and the fix-it mentality automatically means that something's wrong and we need to make it right. And, even that kind of more subtle, it's like, in my opinion or my perspective, it's wrong. So then I need to make it right in my perspective, my opinion, which obviously doesn't go with like a hell of a lot of other people out there. Like, just speaking of like the differences of opinion in people within like families or friends or like states and counties. But if you go to different countries, well, there's like a whole other way of living that's like outside of the box, that we live in here, or like in the whatever culture you're in. But I like what you said there about how your wife laughs at it, and it's, I'm sure that she laughs at it in like a really endearing way, like she loves you, right? And as you said that, I thought about 2 friends that who I played baseball with, and they would just like, that would be like, I practice talking to them, and I would just like stop, like mid-sentence, and just like try and get this thing out, and I'd just be staring at them in the eyes, like, just like, this look in my eyes like the deer in the headlights, and they would just like, after like maybe 3 seconds, would just burst out laughing, and they just like couldn't contain themselves. And then just because of like their joy, and they weren't making fun of me, they just like were like, Nate, we fucking love you so much, and because they're laughing, I would start to laugh too. And it was actually so great. In the moment, I didn't realize how great it was and how much of a blessing it was that they weren't taking it seriously too, but like they were letting go of it within themselves, which automatically helps the other person let go of it also.
Yeah, and that's the whole idea too. We just take things so serious, and now I laugh at myself, like when I can't do something and then I figure out like it was like the simplest, easiest thing to do, I literally just like burst out laughing like, oh crap, it was that easy. Like
Yeah.
it just kind of it just you have to laugh at yourself a little bit more, and everything will be okay. Um, and the idea too that there's always, going back to what you're saying too, that there's only one way of doing something, that's what drove me nuts in school. And
Yeah.
that's why I always quote unquote failed in school, is because there's only one way of doing something, right? And that's completely just not the case. I had a friend of mine, we're just shooting the shit one day, and we're talking about history and like how things were back in the day, and how society is now. And we just kind of were thinking of the fact of like, hey, what would you be back in the day? Would you be the gatherer or the hunter? Because that's all there was back in the day, right? And I looked at him without even skipping a beat, and I'd be like, I'd be the guy making the baskets and making the tools. And he's like, what do you mean? And I go, well, who's going to give them the tools that they need to hunt? And who's going to give them, the guns, the ammo? Who's going to make sure people have baskets to gather up the food? Who's going to do all those things? And he looked at me, he goes, oh shit, you're right. And that, and those are the little things that we need to think about. That's always the case with everything. There always is a different way of looking at it. And that's honestly what I call it now, my dyslexia, not dyslexia, because it's my good luck that I have that aspect of me, because I look at every single thing in a completely different way.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, like, all these things that we like see as obstacles, and we could just replace the word obstacle with challenge, and we could even replace the word challenge with opportunity. All these challenges that we have in our lives are there to help us grow. So like, if we can like look at this thing in our life, whether it's something about us or some relationship or something at work or whatever, some illness, if we can look at it as an opportunity to overcome something and to grow, to let go of something, or even, I mean, the biggest thing is like to transcend it being an obstacle, and that comes a lot through being able to accept it as it is and work with it. Then the function of it is actually for us to get better. It's not there to make us get worse and to keep like pounding us down into the ground and holding us back. It's meant to make us stronger. And like, I love the Zen saying. It says that obstacles do not block the path, they are the path. And when I hear that, one, I laugh every time, and then two, I just like picture these like big boulders, and when you like climb over them, then you're higher. So if you like overcome an obstacle, you climb up that big boulder, then you're higher. And like, yeah, that takes some work and attention. But if I just stand at the bottom all day and be like, this is bullshit, what the hell, why is this here, I'm not gonna get anywhere.
100%. Oh man, yeah, that's good. And I think all of that, going back to what we've said a couple times in there, just all of it is just accepting how it is, and it's okay. Yeah. It's all okay at the end of the day.
Yeah, and like so many things, in the realm of spiritual growth, it seems like passive, like acceptance. It seems like, oh, why would I accept this? This is unacceptable. I'm not going to accept this. I'm not going to lay down and just like, they'll let this get the best of me. But the person that actually puts their dukes down first is the person that wins the fight. So like, if we can like, again, be like, this is the situation, what are we going to do with it? Not what are we going to do to it, how are we going to get it out of here, what are we going to do with it? And like, I have this awesome story actually that just came to me. So I was camping with a friend, and we met up with two other friends, and we like they were hiking up this mountain, but the drive into it was like this really long dirt road, the roughest road I've ever been on in my life. And my friend was driving an Acura. We're like, wait, not an Acura. I was driving a Honda Civic. We're like, oh shit, you know. And we go and we're like, okay, then let's just stop here and walk the rest of the way because I don't want your car to like break down. That's where we go, you know, and we're trying to follow directions that we found on the internet. So, so that's from like different people and stuff. You know, and so we hike, you know, and we lose the trail several times, and we're totally lost. We just like, you know, keep going, and we're like really high up in the mountains, and then we turn back, and it's like, okay, so we turn back probably too late, you know, and we get down, and now it's like pitch black, and we don't know where we are. So we're just like, you know, doing our best to find a trail, and we don't know if we're on the right trail. And we're hiking back for like an hour and a half or so, and then we like finally make it to the car, like at like maybe at like midnight or something, and we get to his car, and one of his tires is totally flat. And then nobody complained the whole time. Nobody complained. We just put the spare tire on, and my friend was driving, and then us three were like we're out in front of the car, guiding his tires so specifically so the spare tire was going to be saved. And we're like, you know, digging, moving rocks, and like they're making ramps and stuff to help his tire go smoothly. We did that for so long, and it was actually really fun because nobody was complaining. We were all just there and working with it, and it was like actually an awesome memory.
Oh, that's perfect, man. Yeah, and I mean, because what else are you gonna do? Like, if you're gonna bitch and moan about it, it's just gonna make the job way worse, right?
Yeah.
And you know, it, we've all been there where we don't want to be who we are. Don't want to have this thing attached to us. And if we just always look in the perspective that it's there for a reason, you know, then that is how we're going to grow, how we're going to get better, how we're going to have the wicked cool story that somehow we made it in the middle of the night with a flat tire down this trail. You know, it all works out in its divine timing way.
Yeah. So for you and the dyslexia, so how did that kind of like shape the image that you had of yourself? Like, how did that kind of create the relationship that you had with yourself?
So for the longest time, I never thought I was good enough. I always looked for the easiest thing to possibly do to avoid, you know, to avoid just embarrassment, to avoid having to like I looked at education completely as a fear-based thought of like, there's no way I can pass all these tests. There's no way I can do all these things. So I just looked the other day the other way of what is the easiest possible thing to do. So in the grand scheme of things, I always looked at the easy way out, and I always just thought to myself, like, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. And the way I look at it now is I kind of crack up, and it's going back to kind of, you know, the zigs and the zags of life, right? And we think to ourselves that everyone just makes it, and they hear this like crazy cool success story about like how their business started up, you know, how they were, you know, completely perfect in every way. And not everyone really talks about all the things that took them to get there. Or, and in perfect examples too is, you know, we always have to look at the fact of any story you really break down of somebody pushing through everything, they always had something attached to it that they had to go through, and they had to make themselves of it. And that's kind of how I look at it now at the end of the day, because I wouldn't be here talking to you if I didn't have dyslexia. You know, I wouldn't have the cool story to share about it. And, you know, it wouldn't be my good luck charm at the end of the day. And yeah, I think that answers your questions of kind of how it ended up basically holding me back for a big chunk of my life, of, you know, what it ultimately did to my self-image. And, you know, it created this self-image that it's such a bad thing, where now I look at it as one of the biggest blessings that I possibly have.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And I think that the thought of not being good enough, I mean, that's something that I think mostly everyone can relate to. and it actually might be tied closely into this thing that we're talking about with like, each of you, so each of you individually, because that's what it was for me too. It's like, I'm not good enough. I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't do this right. I can't do that right. And like, again, I blamed it on the stutter. And I said that that's the reason why I'm not good enough. That's why I can't do it. And then like, obviously that created like a very limiting self-image that I had, of myself. Because like, if you look at me from the outside, you think, well, oh, this guy must be super happy and super successful. But I was limiting myself because of the thought that I had of myself and the beliefs that I had of myself. But then, also, so we've kind of mentioned before how like it isn't this thing that's holding us back, but it's our thought about the thing. And it's our relationship to that thing, because everything in life is a relationship. Basically, a relationship is the way that you think about something. So like, so with that being said, that your thoughts could make for a really great relationship, or can make stuff like a really destructive relationship of separation and hate. And when it comes down to it, the thing, whatever it is for you, so for me, the stutter, that wasn't holding me back. It was my thought about it. And so my thought about it was that it's bad, it's not good, and I can't do all these things because of it. And I completely identified with it as being who I am. I thought that that's how I am. And this is different from trying to accept this is the way things are, or this is how I am in the moment. So like, accepting like, some disability or the disability or a sickness, and being like, well, I got to live with it. That's giving up. And that's, it's kind of playing a victim. And a victim is always disempowered, because, a victim is feeling a certain way because of this other thing. So you can't really do much good when you're a victim. And my belief was that this is how I am, and this is how I'll always be, and I can't see myself ever overcoming this thing, and I will never be able to do these things that I want to do as long as this thing is here. So me actually making that as part of myself, that was the actual like core, that you could say problem, but maybe you could say like the core dysfunction that was like really, really holding me back. But like, in the spiritual sense, we're actually not this body. This body, is very temporary. After I die, this body will stay here for some amount of time, right? But all the life will leave the body, and I will leave the body. I won't be speaking, I won't be doing any of this stuff. So the person who actually won't be there anymore. So how could I be this body? And just the same thing, I'm not my reputation, I'm not the money that I have, I'm not the job that I have. But like, so we're so conditioned to build our identity with things outside, and that's why people try and get rich. That's like one of the main reasons why people try and get rich and try and buy all this really cool stuff, or look for a partner, because they're trying to be completed, because they don't feel whole or complete on the inside. But yeah.
So I was gonna ask you too, because something brought. I was thinking about something as you're talking there. So what was it that you think? When was it that you got to this place that you're like, oh shit, that's not who I am? What circumstances did you have with that?
Okay. So I think this is a great time to read this. To read this little post. So this is a post that I put on Facebook, and like, I really I don't ever post the really personal stuff, on social media. But this was the January 1st of this year. And actually, it was kind of like 2 weeks after I did my first journey into happiness, Ben. And I was learning about cool. the learning about how like how all suffering is just a story in our head. The more specifically, a story that we believe. Okay, so I said, let's do better than we did last year, last month, yesterday. Let's just do better than we did in the previous moment. Peace is something that is inside of us. The peace on earth comes when enough people on earth feel that peace within themselves. It really just takes acceptance. Easier said than done. To accept oneself completely is no easy task, because that means accepting all the things that you believe are wrong with you, all the things that you need to change about yourself, all the things that you've been taught aren't acceptable. But what if what you believe is not true? What beliefs do you have about yourself that are limiting you? All the things that include I can't, I'm not, I'll never. What stories are you telling yourself about yourself all the time that just aren't true? So I'll share something about myself. When I was 6 years old, I started speaking with a stutter. That stutter has held me back in life more than anything else. It stopped me from making new friends, meeting new people, giving presentations, answering the phone, thinking about other people, and pursuing many things I wanted to but didn't because I told myself I couldn't. I was telling a teacher of mine recently that I don't speak fluently, and that's the biggest challenge in my life. So she looked at me with big eyes and said, "Is that what you think about yourself?" And that seriously blew my mind, because that is exactly what I've thought about myself for basically my entire life. And that belief has boxed me in as a person who stutters and doesn't do so many things because of it. Telling myself that story about myself was the most unkind thing I've done in my entire life, and it translated into many harmful things coming out of me into this world. I don't believe that story anymore. I don't believe that story anymore. I choose not to believe that story anymore. So here we are in a new year, and this is really just another day, but because of the meaning we place on it, that we can be motivated to make powerful decisions. That I could tell you, 3 years ago, I dedicated my life to becoming better. I want to be better for my family, friends, the many people I come in contact with on a daily basis, the environment, the future. I want this life to be the most useful life it can possibly be. I want to bring as much peace, joy, and happiness into this world as I can in the short time that I'm here. I can tell you, I'm trying my absolute best every single day. I do my best. Sometimes I fail, sometimes I succeed, but I keep trying. I do my best and try to let go of the rest. If you want to make a change in your life, decide, just start with one thing. Just do one thing different for the entire year. Just one thing. See what happens. So yeah,
that is epic, dude.
So that really, that was 2019 in like the fall. That's almost 1 year ago. And that teacher was Brenda, by the way. And I was just like, wow, yeah, that is what I think about myself.
Yeah.
And like, it never occurred to me that, like, although that's what was happening, like, now in the present moment, sometimes that the stuttering happens, and it has happened in the past. I don't need to keep saying it all the time. I don't need to keep on saying that I stutter and that it's my stutter, because whenever my and mine create a lot of suffering. And that's also like another form of identification. It's called possession. So if you make things like yours, then we tend to get like a lot more like serious about that thing. Then just like a really easy example is like, it's way easier to go to somebody else, like, let's say like a friend or a teammate, and let's say something bad happened to them, like the that they broke up with their partner, or they struck out 3 times, in a game, and they're just like feeling really down. It's so easy to go up to that person who's not you and who you don't identify with to be as yourself, and just say, hey man, it's okay, you're awesome, and you're going to get them the next time. Because it's really easy to see past what they're suffering about and see like them, like more of their true essence. And it's just so easy to like, go up to them and encourage them, be like, hey, it's fine. But with us, when we say like me or my job or my game or my reputation or my relationship, then we take it so much more seriously, and it's so much harder to get over it because we attach that word my or mine.
Yeah, and I think, we get to this place where we wish this wasn't a part of us. We wish we didn't have to deal with this. We want nothing to do with it. And we go deeper and deeper with putting ourselves in this hole. And one thing that you said in your writing there, and one thing I would, for everyone listening right now, is start today by setting that aside and letting it go and just accepting who you are. It's okay to not be perfect. And I promise you, nobody is perfect. Nobody is perfect at all. And anyone that says they're perfect is full of it. They are absolutely full of it. And they're really boring if they really think that about themselves. And, just go with it. Just go with yourself. Just be okay with being weird and wacky and not doing everything the right way. It is completely okay. And sure, I wish I accepted that about myself a long time ago, but I'm really, really happy I had all the experiences along this journey that I have had to get here today, because I have met a lot of cool people. I have learned a lot of different things about myself, and ultimately, I'm just a better person because of it. So that's why I'll continue to always call it my dyslexia.
I love that so much. And so what you're saying there reminded me of like everything starts with oneself, right? So like even compassion. So one way that word is defined is to suffer with. So if we don't learn to like be with our own suffering, instead of like saying, it's wrong, it's bad, I don't want to feel this. If we don't learn to like relax and be with our own suffering and comfort, our own things, just in that same way that we would comfort like a small child and be like, hey, it's okay, there's no need to cry, likely that we wouldn't yell at that kid saying, shut up, stop crying. I mean, I have seen that done before, but you know what I'm talking about. So it starts with us, and if we can develop like self-acceptance, which is another way of saying self-love, and then seeing that on one level we actually are perfect and there's nothing wrong with us, like wrong as terms of wrong and right, but there's just things that need our loving attention to be able to work with it, and then just let it become something else, because everything is just changing into other things. Nothing is like bam, get it out of here, and then we start something completely new. Everything is like transforming and like morphing and all that stuff. So it's not about trying to get something out of here, but in trying to create something new with it. So with, that's a beautiful word, with.
Yeah, I love that. And that, that reminds me too of just the idea of being unique and being weird. I think is going to be just a recurring thing that we constantly say.
Oh yeah.
And because one thing that I won't go on to this topic, but definitely something that is completely wrong with the box and society is that we all try to be the same. And I'll quickly summarize with this. Nothing in nature is the same. Every leaf that drops is completely different. You could look at one leaf, it'll somehow be a different size, a different color. Just like they talk about a snowflake, there is not, one snowflake that is the same of everything else. So what makes you think that you're going to be the same as everybody else? And why would you want to do that? It's not a natural way of looking at anything. Yeah. What is natural is accepting who you are, what you're all about, and what all your weaknesses are just going to turn to your strengths when you accept them at the end of the day.
Exactly. Nature is perfect.
Exactly.
It doesn't go in a straight line, that doesn't make right angles. It just does what's necessary. It does what's needed, and it does it in such a beautiful way. And we're part of nature, so we could do that too, I think.
Exactly. And I really think, to close it out, I think that's part of the experience of all this journey that we live on.
Yeah, for sure. It's all about the journey, not the destination.
100%. All right, man. Well, this was an awesome one today. Why don't you wrap things up and close it out with a little meditation, my friend?
Yeah. Okay, so if you're in a position where you can close your eyes, then close your eyes. But, again, if you're like driving or something, obviously don't do that. But just take your attention to your breath. So again, no matter what you're doing, you can take your attention to your breath. And on every inhale, just kind of like just feeling how the body feels. And then on the exhale, just kind of a sense of setting something down, as if you're setting something down really precious on a table or the floor. So you can even say inhale, you're holding, and exhale, you're just letting go so softly and sweetly. And doing this with your own body, with your own self, which is absolutely beautiful and is loved by many people out there, I'm sure. And if there's something that other people can see in us that's so beautiful and precious, well, why can't we see that too? All right, let's take just 2 more breaths, nice and easy. Well, all right, everyone. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day or night or whatever you're doing. And Ben, I thank you so much for joining with me again today and having an awesome conversation. Love talking to you.
Likewise, man. Until next time, thank you for everyone who's been a part of this and been part of our journey. And we can't wait to hear about your experience. Have a great day, everyone. Sending you lots of peace and love.
Peace and love, everyone.